It all started when I met Lena. She was everything I had ever wanted: beautiful, confident, and full of life. The kind of woman you'd see on your social media feed, the one everyone else admired from afar. She seemed perfect in every way, and I felt lucky to have her in my life. At first, it was just a casual fling. We met at a mutual friend's party, and there was an instant connection. Her laughter was infectious, and when she spoke, it was as if the world paused to listen. Her eyes sparkled with something mysterious. But there was a warmth to her, a comfort, that I had never felt with anyone before. I thought I had found my match. Everything felt effortless. We spent our days exploring new places, binge-watching shows late into the night, and making future plans together. The relationship was quick to escalate, and soon, we were inseparable. I should have known something was off when she started talking about her past. She told me little bits here and there, like a puzzle with pieces scattered in different rooms. She never went into detail, just vague references to things that had happened years ago. At first, I brushed it off as nothing more than the baggage that comes with being an adult, but as time went on, I began to wonder. One evening, we were sitting on the couch, just talking about random things, when she dropped a bombshell. She said, "I have a dark past, a dangerous one." She paused, almost waiting for me to respond, but I was speechless. The atmosphere between us shifted. Her smile faltered for a moment before she quickly masked it with a laugh. "Don't worry," she added, her voice softer now. "I've moved past it. It's behind me." But something in the way she said it, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. I let it go, figuring that if she wanted to share more, she would when she was ready. After all, we were still in the honeymoon phase, and I didn't want to ruin the magic by prying too soon. As the weeks passed, Lena's behavior started to become erratic. One minute, she was the loving, caring girlfriend I had fallen for, and the next, she was distant, lost in her thoughts. She would stare off into the distance, her brow furrowed as if she was deep in thought. I would ask her if something was wrong, but she always brushed it off with a smile and a kiss. But one night, everything changed. It was a Friday, and we had planned to go out for dinner. I had picked her up from her apartment, and we were driving to the restaurant when she suddenly got quiet. At first, I didn't think much of it. She had a long day at work, and I figured she was just tired. But then, as we turned onto a quiet street near the restaurant, she turned to me with an almost frantic look in her eyes. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice shaky. I could feel the weight of her words in the air, the tension building in the car. I pulled over to the side of the street, my heart racing. Whatever it was, it felt serious. "You're scaring me," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "What's going on?" She swallowed hard, her eyes flickering with fear. "I've been lying to you. About everything." I stared at her, unable to comprehend what she meant. Was this some sort of joke? I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I don't understand," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "What do you mean?" "I'm not who I say I am," she continued, her hands trembling in her lap. "The woman you've fallen in love with doesn't exist. She's a version of me, yes, but she's only a mask. I've been hiding the real me from you. From everyone." I felt my breath catch in my throat, my mind racing to process her words. "What do you mean? What's the real you?" She hesitated, and for the first time since I'd met her, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. "You have to promise me something," she said urgently, her voice barely above a whisper. "No matter what, you can't tell anyone. You can't tell anyone what I'm about to say." I nodded, still in shock. Whatever it was, I could tell it was important. "I promise." She took a deep breath before continuing. "I've been involved in some dangerous things. Things I never should have gotten involved in. People I hurt. I'm not proud of it, but I was in deep. And now they're after me." My heart dropped into my stomach. "Who's after you? What are you talking about?" Lena's eyes darted around, as if expecting someone to jump out from the shadows at any moment. I can't tell you all the details, but there are people, dangerous people, who want something from me. And if they find me, if they figure out where I am, they'll come after you too. The words hung in the air like a thick fog, choking me. I didn't know what to say. My mind was reeling, trying to make sense of everything she was telling me. Was this real? Was this some sort of twisted game? Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked, my voice trembling. I didn't want you to get hurt, she said, her voice breaking. I wanted to protect you. But now it's too late. My thoughts were spinning. The woman I had fallen in love with, the woman who had seemed so perfect, was hiding a past filled with danger and deception. I didn't know if I should run or stay, if I should protect myself or try to help her. Before I could say anything else, she grabbed my hand, her grip tight. I need you to trust me. I need you to help me get away from them. You're the only one who can help me now. But even as she said those words, a small voice in the back of my mind was screaming who was the real Lena. And what had I gotten myself into? I didn't know it then, but this was just the beginning. The truth about Lena, about everything she'd kept hidden from me, was far darker and more dangerous than I could have ever imagined. And soon, I would realize just how far people would go to protect their secrets. Little did I know, the mystery I thought I was unraveling would only lead me deeper into a web of lies, betrayal, and danger one I might never escape. I should have known something was off the moment Lena mentioned the dangerous people who were after her. That was the first red flag, one I ignored in my desperation to believe that I had found the perfect woman. She was so convincing, so beautiful, so full of life. And the truth, it was so much easier to brush aside. But even then, something gnawed at the back of my mind. I could feel the weight of her words lingering in the air, heavy and dark, like a storm cloud just waiting to break. I couldn't shake the sense of unease that settled in my chest. Was this really happening? Was Lena's past really as dangerous as she said, or was it all just part of some twisted game? But despite the growing discomfort, I decided to give her the benefit of the doubt. After all, she was right about one thing. I hadn't known the full story yet. I had to trust her. I had to believe that the woman I had fallen in love with, the one who made me laugh, who lit up every room she walked into, was telling the truth. And for the next few days, I did. I tried my best to be understanding. I held her close, offering her comfort in the midst of whatever storm she was running from. We spent hours talking about it all, her past, her fears, her regrets. She told me about a series of bad decisions she had made when she was younger, decisions that had pulled her into a world of crime and corruption. She was vague, of course, refusing to go into too much detail. But she spoke of the people she had crossed, of the lies she had told, and the things she had done to protect herself. But there was something else in her eyes, something I couldn't quite place. A fear, yes, but also a glimmer of something darker, something unsettling. Still, I wanted to believe her. She was my Lena, the woman who had stolen my heart in the blink of an eye. The idea that she could be hiding something truly dangerous was too much to fathom. A few days after that conversation, I started noticing small things. Odd, seemingly insignificant details that didn't add up. It was subtle at first, a late-night text message she quickly deleted when I walked into the room, a phone call she ended abruptly when I answered her knock at the door. Each time, she would offer a vague excuse, a half-hearted laugh, but I could feel the tension in the air. The cracks were starting to show. And yet, I chose to ignore them. I was still caught in the illusion, still blinded by the idea of the perfect girlfriend. It all came to a head one evening when we decided to go out for drinks with some of her friends. I had met them a couple of times before, but I didn't know them very well. They were nice enough, but there was something strange about their interactions with Lena. It was as if they were all hiding something from me. I felt like an outsider in my own relationship, and the unease gnawed at me. Lena had always been so open about everything, but tonight, she was distant. She kept checking her phone, her eyes scanning the room as if she was expecting someone or something. Her friends didn't seem to notice, or maybe they just didn't care. I asked her if everything was okay. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Everything's fine," she said, her voice too calm. "Just a lot on my mind, you know." But I didn't buy it. Something was wrong. The laughter around me felt forced, the jokes hollow. I watched Lena closely, trying to catch a glimpse of the woman I thought I knew. But the longer I watched her, the more it became clear she was hiding something that she wasn't willing to share with me. As the night wore on, I felt a growing sense of discomfort. I tried to shake it off, to enjoy the night for what it was, but the feeling of being on the edge of a cliff, about to fall, was suffocating. I was starting to realize that I had been living in a carefully constructed fantasy. Around midnight, things took a strange turn. Lena excused herself from the table, slipping out of the bar without saying a word. I was left staring after her, a knot of worry tightening in my stomach. I knew something wasn't right, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I stood up, excusing myself from the table. I went outside to look for her. I found her standing by the street, her back to me, her shoulders tense. Her hands were clenched at her sides, as if she was ready for something, waiting for something. "Lena." I called out, but she didn't turn around. "Lena, what's going on?" I asked again, stepping closer. Finally, she spoke, her voice low and strained. "You don't need to be here. Just go back inside." "What do you mean?" I said, my heart racing. "What's going on? Why are you acting like this?" She turned to face me then, and for the first time I saw her eyes wide, filled with fear and something else, something colder. She looked like a different person entirely, a stranger in the body of the woman I thought I knew. "I told you," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm trying to protect you. I can't keep pretending anymore. There's no escaping this. You have no idea what you're involved in." Before I could respond, a car pulled up to the curb behind her, a sleek black sedan with tinted windows. The driver didn't get out, but I could feel the presence of someone watching us. It was too much, this tension, this growing sense of danger. Lena turned, her face pale as she grabbed my arm and pulled me away from the street. "We need to leave," she said urgently. "Now." I didn't argue. I followed her without a word, the sense of impending doom hanging over me like a storm cloud ready to burst. As we got into her car, she started the engine, her hand shaking. "This is why I couldn't tell you everything," she said, her voice barely audible. "You don't understand what's at stake here. There are people who won't stop until they get what they want from me, and you're now part of it." I stared at her in disbelief. My mind was reeling, trying to make sense of what she was saying. "What are you talking about? Who are these people?" Lena didn't answer. She just kept driving, her eyes glued to the road, as if she was trying to outrun her past. And maybe, just maybe, she was right, she had been trying to outrun something. But now, it seemed that whatever she'd been running from had caught up with her, and I was in way over my head. I had ignored the signs. I had chosen to believe her, to trust her. And now, I was stuck in a nightmare, caught in a web of lies, deceit, and danger. I had seen the first red flag, and I had ignored it. Now, there was no turning back. The next few days felt like a blur. I barely slept, my mind a constant whirlwind of questions, doubts, and fears. Lena had driven me to her apartment that night, and after we arrived, she asked me to stay with her, promising that everything would be okay, that we were just laying low for a little while. But I could see it in her eyes. She was scared. More than scared, terrified. She insisted that I shouldn't leave the apartment, at least not alone. It seemed like overkill, but then again, what did I really know? Everything about Lena's past had been shrouded in mystery, and now, it seemed that even the woman I thought I knew was a stranger to me. I couldn't understand why she was so terrified. Was it all just an act to keep me close? Or was there really a hidden danger that I couldn't see? I tried to focus on the little things, things that could distract me from the gnawing uncertainty. We spent time together in her apartment, talking well. She talked, and I listened. She told me stories about her childhood, about a family she rarely mentioned, and about friends she had lost touch with over the years. But there were gaps, huge holes in her stories. Every time she started to share something deep, something that might explain why she was running, she would quickly change the subject. It was as if she wanted to show me a version of her life that was carefully curated, a sanitized version that she could control. I wasn't sure if I was buying it anymore. Then, on the third night, something happened that would change everything. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone aimlessly, trying to drown out the noise in my head, when Lena disappeared into her bedroom. It wasn't unusual for her to retreat there she'd been on edge for days, and I chalked it up to stress. But then I heard the sound of someone moving around in the bedroom. I assumed it was just her, maybe pacing or tidying up, but when I heard the unmistakable sound of something clattering to the floor, my stomach tightened. I stood up slowly, inching toward the bedroom door, trying not to make any noise. I pressed my ear against the door, and that's when I heard her voice. It was muffled, but the words were clear enough. "No, not yet, please. Don't I swear. I'll do it, just give me a little more time." I felt my heart race as I pushed the door open just a crack, enough to see into the room. I couldn't see her at first, only her silhouette in the dim light, but the conversation I was overhearing was enough to make me freeze in place. I should have turned around. I should have respected her privacy, should have given her space. But I couldn't. I was too far gone, too desperate for the truth. So I slowly stepped inside, trying to remain unseen. Lena was standing by the window, her back to me, her phone pressed to her ear. Her face was pale, her expression one of fear, and I could see her trembling. She was shaking all over. It wasn't the woman I had fallen for. This was someone else entirely. "I'll get it," she said again, her voice shaking. "Just a little longer. I'm getting close." Before I could process what I was hearing, she ended the call abruptly. My breath caught in my throat as she turned to face me. I froze, unable to look away. Her eyes locked with mine, wide with shock, guilt, and something dark, a hint of anger, maybe. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, her voice cold. I wanted to ask her everything, the questions that had been burning in my mind for days, but all that came out was a whisper. "Who are you talking to?" She hesitated for a moment, her gaze flickering to the floor, then back at me. "It's nothing, okay? Just don't worry about it." "No," I said, stepping closer, my heart pounding. "Who was that?" "What's going on, Lena?" Her face darkened. "I told you not to worry about it." But I could hear it in her voice, the desperation, the fear, and something else. I wasn't sure what it was, but it sounded like a lie. It felt like a lie. I knew, deep down, that I couldn't ignore this anymore. There was something bigger going on here, something that I hadn't even begun to understand. But I couldn't make sense of it on my own. I needed answers. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the room, heading straight for the apartment door. Lena followed me, grabbing my arm as I reached for the handle. "Don't go," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "Please. You don't understand." I pulled away from her, shaking my head. "Then explain it to me. All of it. What's really going on? Who are you running from? What do they want from you?" Her eyes were filled with tears now, but there was also something else, a flicker of something cold and calculating that made me hesitate. "You don't want to know the truth," she said, her voice barely a whisper. I stopped in my tracks. "Try me." Lena swallowed hard, stepping back toward the bedroom. "You don't understand. I never wanted you to get involved. You were supposed to be safe. I thought I could protect you from all of this," but now she didn't finish her sentence. She didn't need to. The look in her eyes told me everything I needed to know. She had kept something from me. Something huge. I didn't know what to do. My mind was racing, my thoughts a tangled mess. Was this all just one big game to her? Was I being played? Or was Lena really in danger? But then I remembered the phone call. The way she had been speaking to the person on the other end, someone who wasn't just a friend, someone who had power, control. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just uncovered a small piece of something much bigger, something terrifying. But Lena wasn't going to tell me the whole truth. No, I realized I had to find it out for myself. I had to take matters into my own hands. That night, after Lena had gone to bed, I searched the apartment. It was a last-ditch effort, an act of desperation. I didn't know what I was looking for, maybe some kind of evidence, a clue that would explain everything. I rifled through her drawers, her closet, her desk, but I found nothing that stood out. It wasn't until I opened a small, locked box on her nightstand that I found something that made my blood run cold. Inside the box was a stack of papers, but one caught my eye, a photograph. I picked it up, my hands trembling as I turned it over. The image showed a man tall and well-dressed, with a cold, calculating look in his eyes. There was something familiar about him, but I couldn't place it. And then, underneath the photograph, I saw the name, Victor Steele. The name didn't mean anything to me at first, but as soon as I saw it, my heart skipped a beat. I had heard that name before on a conversation Lena had been having with one of her friends. I had heard it in passing, like it was a name that shouldn't be spoken too loudly. But now, it was right in front of me. Victor Steele. Whoever he was connected to Lena's past. And if the photograph was any indication, he was someone she wanted to keep hidden. I suddenly realized that this was bigger than I could ever have imagined. Lena wasn't just running from her past. She was running from a dangerous world. She had been a part of a world filled with people who wouldn't hesitate to hurt anyone who got in their way. And that included me. I didn't know what to do next. But I knew one thing, my life was never going to be the same. I should have seen it coming, the final twist in the story I had been blind to for so long. The revelation about Victor Steele, that name, that man had thrown everything I thought I knew about Lena into a whirlwind of confusion and betrayal. But I didn't have the luxury of time to sit and mourn what had been lost. No, things had escalated quickly. It wasn't just a question of protecting myself anymore. It was about survival. After finding that photograph, I had realized something deeper. Lena was entangled in a dangerous web far beyond her control. But what if she wasn't entirely innocent? What if she had been lying about her involvement in it all? For the first time, I was facing the possibility that the woman I had given everything to might have been a willing participant in something much darker. The days that followed were a blur of paranoia, a tightening knot of dread in my chest that only grew stronger as I waited for Lena to explain herself. But she never did. Instead, she was more distant than ever, more erratic in her behavior. She stopped telling me things. The phone calls came more often, and each time she would disappear into her bedroom, pacing, whispering, like she was running from a ghost that I could never see. But I couldn't wait any longer for answers. I needed to know the truth, and I needed to act fast before whatever storm Lena had been hiding from swept me under. I couldn't let her keep playing me for a fool. I couldn't let myself be dragged into a situation I didn't understand, one where my life was in the hands of people I had never met, but who had the power to destroy everything. One night, while Lena was in the kitchen, I decided to take action. I couldn't just confront her again. It would only lead to more lies. No, this time I had to be smarter. I had to find the truth myself. I had already found the photograph of Victor Steele, and that was enough of a lead to go on. But there was one more thing. I had to uncover something that would show me who Lena really was, and what she was hiding from me. I took out my phone and started searching. I googled Victor Steele's name, digging through pages of obscure news articles and social media profiles, trying to piece together any information I could find. I didn't know what I was expecting, maybe some criminal record, maybe some hint of his connections to the world Lena had once been a part of. What I found was far more unsettling than I could have imagined. Victor Steele wasn't just some businessman or shady associate. He was a dangerous figure in the underground world of money laundering, arms dealing, and organized crime. The more I read, the more I realized that Lena had been entangled with him in ways I couldn't begin to comprehend. But there was more. According to the articles, Steele had a network, one that extended far beyond the cities Lena had told me about. And that network was now targeting her. But why? I knew I couldn't trust Lena's version of events anymore. I needed to confront her, to demand answers. But the more I thought about it, the more it became clear I didn't just want answers anymore. I wanted justice. And it wasn't going to come from her. No, it was up to me to take control of the situation. I had to make a choice: stay with Lena, get drawn into her lies, and risk becoming a casualty in whatever twisted game she was playing, or take matters into my own hands. The decision came to me slowly, like a dark realization I had been avoiding. I had been giving Lena everything, trusting her completely, believing in the version of her that she had sold to me. But that wasn't who she really was. That night, after Lena went to bed, I made my move. I snuck into her bedroom again, this time with a clearer goal in mind. I needed to find the answers she had hidden from me. My hands shook as I pulled open the drawer, where I had found the photograph of Victor Steele. My heart pounded in my chest, the adrenaline pushing me forward. I dug through the contents of the drawer, looking for anything that might give me a bigger picture of Lena's connections. That's when I found it, another envelope. This one was different. It was sealed with a wax mark, something that looked like it came from an old-world society. It didn't take long to realize that this was more than just a casual piece of correspondence. This was something important. I tore it open carefully, pulling out a thick stack of papers. At first, they appeared to be official documents, contracts, financial statements, and legal agreements, but as I sifted through them, my heart skipped a beat. The names on the papers, the amounts of money exchanged, the locations listed, everything pointed back to Victor Steele's organization. And right at the top of one of the contracts, in bold letters, was Lena's name. She wasn't just involved in this world, she was a player in it. And worse, she was in deep. My stomach twisted as I read the words in front of me. This wasn't the woman I had fallen in love with. This was someone entirely different, someone who had chosen this life, someone who had known the risks, and decided to play the game anyway. Suddenly, a thought struck me. What if Lena had betrayed me? What if she was using me all along to get something from me, something that I wasn't aware of? The idea made my blood run cold. I had trusted her completely, had given her the best parts of me, and now I was just another pawn in whatever game she was playing. I had to confront her. No more lies, no more excuses. I needed the truth. But I also knew that Lena wasn't going to just come clean. If I was going to get what I needed, I would have to make her give it to me. As I was about to leave the room to find Lena, the front door suddenly opened. My heart stopped. I quickly hid the documents and slipped out of her bedroom, my mind racing. It wasn't Lena. It was a man, someone I had never seen before. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and he had an air of authority about him that made my skin crawl. He looked around the apartment like he owned it, his eyes scanning the room, and then he turned toward the bedroom where I had just been. I could hear his voice, low and steady, as he spoke to someone on the phone. I couldn't make out the details, but I didn't need to. This was one of them. One of the people Lena had been running from, or worse, one of her allies. I had to act fast. I couldn't let him know I was here. I needed to escape, but I also needed to gather more information, find out who this man was, what his relationship with Lena really was. I slipped quietly into the kitchen, grabbing my phone and snapping a quick photo of him from the doorway. My mind raced, but I knew this could be my opportunity, my chance to take control of the situation, to finally make Lena realize that she wasn't the only one with power. I didn't want to play the victim anymore. If Lena wasn't going to protect me, then I would protect myself. And if revenge was the only way to get justice, then I would find a way to make sure the truth came out. In that moment, I understood something I hadn't before. I wasn't just a victim in this story. I was part of it now. And this time, the game was mine to win.